Always be suspicious of artists because they congregate and socialize with people from all walks of society. Knowledge is power, information is power. But the more powerful thing is the exchange. Like the most dangerous people to society, to the powers that be, are the people who are able to be on road and in a castle. Do you know what I mean? Like the people who are on the ground, but the people who are also in parliament. Man, like if I look at like religion and look at like stuff, I look at art, it's the same. Not to denounce religion by saying that, but it's because I realize that I just really believe in art. I think that is why art is so important, because you need something that is a reflection of what people are thinking, feeling, going through, what they hate, what they love. Like you need that. On its surface, it isn't needed. I think you only realize the power of art when it's removed.
And we're in. We're locked in now. You're a difficult man to get a hold of. I got you eventually.
Yeah.
How you doing? You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Good day.
We got to act like we haven't just been here for 45 minutes already.
Yeah.
And that we haven't already been speaking about the wildest of ideas. Absolute pleasure, sir. I'll start the same place I start with everybody, and we'll see where it leads us from there. First question I'll ask, what is art?
It's so hard. It's so hard. Do you know what, actually, a conversation me and a friend were having recently was about how like we use like idioms and like metaphors and like cliche phrases. They're like, you know, like on your Mac Finder, you have the zip folder and the icon. And like idioms are like the icon. And we say those things just talking about the icon. But like very rarely do we actually like unpack it to see what's like inside it.
Yeah.
And sometimes we like just know the thing is what it is, but we don't know like it's, in a way, it's etymology or like where it came from, what it actually means. And I guess at its base level, art is the icon. It's an iconography in a way, because it like holds so much more inside of it. But sometimes people just look at the surface.
The name is about as much of it as we can grasp.
Yeah, that's the top layer of it. And then as you live more and do more like experiences, or like you see it more and more, you change in life. You start noticing more. You start seeing yourself in it. I also think that's a big thing. Like my favorite stuff, there's something in it that I'm like, the piece turns into a mirror, and I'm trying to find myself in it, or like my peers, or my family, or my life experiences. That's how the best stuff is made as well. Is like it's pulling from some truth.
So it's essentially a mirror of sorts.
Yeah. It changes.
What isn't it?
I was gonna say it isn't nothing, but then it in ways it is nothing. A friend of mine read this book, and she sent me the ending of it, and it said something like, the character was like, oh, they asked someone, oh, what's wrong? And the person said nothing. And then they said, to say nothing's wrong, nothing is everything. So everything is, it was like something like that. Like in a way, like the void or like the abyss is nothing, but it's also like, it's
all there is.
It's everything. It's everything. So I don't know. Like, what do you think art is?
It's nothing simple, I know that.
Yeah.
The more I speak to people, the less I believe that it's about self-expression. I don't buy into the idea of art for art's sake. I believe it serves some kind of purpose. I believe it's imbued with responsibility.
Yeah.
And even if that responsibility is something as abstract as revealing the nothingness in everything, or if it's as heavy as highlighting the common misery of man, both of those are still extremely valuable to whoever comes into contact with it. I agree with you, if art is to be a mirror of some sorts, it can't be a mirror into itself.
Yeah.
Because anyone who's been in isolation for long enough knows that staring into the well of oneself, that almost self-obsession, it only leads to madness.
Yeah.
There has to be some something other that it kneels to, that it points to, for it to be of value. So a tool to redirect one's attention.
That's interesting. Art has no... It has no use to society. Wait, let me get to it.
We're about to have a fight.
I know. No.
I'm joking.
No, but it has like, we don't actually need it like we need water. But that is the reason why we need it. Because the way the world is and the way the world is going, and I think just throughout societies, everything, there needs to be a reason for everything. Like, I think that is why art is so important, because you need something that exists that is a reflection of what people are thinking, feeling, going through, what they hate, what they love. Like, you need that. But on its surface, it isn't needed. I think you only realize the power of art when it's removed.
It's something that came up recently through an interaction with someone I had on Twitter. And they were basically like, art doesn't have the power to change society. And that challenged me for a little while, and I had a couple of conversations with a couple of people. But at the end of the day, society is just a collective of individuals trying to figure out the best way to live together.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say peacefully, but at least like harmoniously. And art, as we both know, or I'm sure can agree, is on the pursuit of art, or at least the pursuit of trying to make some good art, it betters you as an individual.
Yeah.
If you're really about your craft, you'll listen to or you'll indulge in works from a multitude of backgrounds, from a multitude of experiences. It will culture you as a human being, and it will inform you of humanity. So how can somebody who's more informed on humanity, or let's say a collective of people who are more informed about humanity, others and their own, how will that not benefit society at the end of the day?
I think the only reason why someone would say that is because they think art doesn't change policies. Or like, it'd be like on a surface level. But I think in a way what it does is it also... It's like steps before. It's steps before the like actual change in a way, I think. It's like, it's deep. I think it's deeper. I think people like learn their... Yeah, I think it's deeper than like, oh, like I saw this painting and now I'm like, don't have this problem anymore. Or like, oh, like I saw this documentary and like, I think it's deeper than that.
For sure. I mean, who makes these policies? It's extremely tight and frightened groups of individuals. Who feel like they have a lot to protect. So these are people who do not have a relationship with death, the common misery of man. So they have this fragility that they want to do everything that they can to protect. But then in the face of a true artist, regardless of medium, you see the lengths that person is willing to suffer for their expression or creative freedom, but essentially for their liberty. And you think, oh, well, maybe it's actually not a terrifying thing to die. Because this person's willing to do it for what? A song, a fucking painting, a book, a belief. So in that sense, it's like, it's not necessarily the art itself, even though art is a relic of an individual's relationship with eternity. And every one of those that we can bring back, I feel like makes somebody else feel like they're able to
express their...
face it first and foremost, and then maybe express it and explore it too.
Art is like, you have the painting, you have the like performance, but they all house an idea.
Is it an idea or is it a message?
I think it differs person to person. Because I think also there's people who are figuring it out live. like in the start of their career, and then as they get older, you see them. It gets refined and refined.
Yeah.
It's like so by the time they're like 60, 70, you're like, oh shit. I think you're constantly trying to just like refine. And sometimes you say the biggest thing in the most simplest way with more time.
What are you refining?
An idea or a message.
Well,
That's the thing. Is it an idea or is it a message?
That's what I'm trying to get to, because if it's about an idea, then it's about how refining the craft so that your ideas are easily able to be manifested. But if it's a message, you have to refine yourself so that there's less room that you're taking up for the message to be expressed, which is why it's a really interesting thing for me to think about.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, what am I actually refining here? Am I the problem? And is that something you learn later in life of being like, because inspiration for me, the ideas are usually in the process. Inspiration is usually about trying to communicate something.
Oh, that's so you find that the ideas are in the process.
The message comes, the thing I want to express, or the thing that feels like it needs to be expressed comes. And then the idea is, well, how do I make it work? How do I get that into the world? How do I make that tangible?
If a person was to say at the start of their like making, like early on into their like practice, what their message is, it would probably be a long page or something like that. Whereas like by the end of their life, it's like the length of half a tweet, and it like says it says it all in that like 180 characters. Whereas the beginning one, it has it in there, but there's a lot of fat. There's a lot of fat. There's a lot of themself. You're right. There's a lot of their self in it, and it's like that time is refining it. But you know, those final works, they are like sparse or minimal or whatever, but like I still think what makes like an artist like whole is like everything. It's not about having like, you know, if we're talking about like Tarantino is all about this, like I'm only doing 10 films, they're gonna be 10 bangers. And it's like what makes for me, I think what makes an artist great is like you're seeing everything.
Yeah.
You're seeing like the hit, you're seeing the one that flopped but 20 years later became a hit. You're seeing the one that like didn't get made and like is actually really bad, but there's like a scene that they do something, or there's like a thing where they do something which they then do again in 10 years' time, which is where it actually works. That's amazing.
An amazing career is defined by the artist's ability to treat every work like their first work.
Yeah.
Like,
and they're lost.
Yeah. But I don't know if true.
But maybe that's too heavy.
But it's the first is like Quentin Tarantino's first film. He might look at now and think, oh, he might cringe at it or whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, that's the shell of everything that he wanted to be.
Yeah.
So like all the ideas are crammed into that one. And then when you have this idea of a legacy that you have to protect or certain expectations that you have to fulfill, then it's like you taint the art anyway.
Yeah.
So treat it as if it's your first time and
Every
be
time.
willing to fuck it up.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah, it's true. That's when you get in the way of yourself.
It's retaining that innocence, that juvenile, youthful innocence, that hubris. But like you were saying, is be willing to fail.
Yeah.
That's what Tarantino's talking about. Is like, I'm going to make 10 because I feel like all of the other directors that I've analysed can't do more than 10 good films.
Yeah.
Nobody has, it's all rooted in an idea instead of being like...
He's like, I've studied. You're like, what about Scorsese? That's what I mean. That's what I find so interesting is like, he's on this like 10 tip.
Yeah.
And like, Scorsese's maybe done 8 this millennium. Like, or like 10. It's like, and it's like...
And some of them haven't been great.
Yeah.
Some of them you haven't watched. Some of the future ones you feel like maybe you won't be as pressed to go and see. But like at the end of the day,
that's a career.
Fuck your legacy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's interesting, but I think that's when you like try and get in the way. You're getting in the way, just not letting it be. Become a bit of a meme of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
where anyone can be like, oh, that's very Tarantino-y. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and that's what's so crazy about like someone like Picasso's life. It's just like he was hitting numbers on the board, like he'd like hat trick, then he's like, cool, that on to the next. You know, he's like
with no thought ever about stopping. Quentin Tarantino, could you imagine what his films would be like if his attitude were, instead of saying, I won't make more than 10 films, if he was to make his next film and think, I haven't even made a film yet. Okay, now I'm ready to go watch a Tarantino film. Do you know what I mean? If someone goes, finishing, I haven't even fucking started.
Yeah.
But Quentin, you're 75 years old.
Yeah.
So? I still need to make my first film.
Yeah.
Like, the idea that you've even done anything yet, even though, Quentin, if you end up watching this...
Yeah. We're not like
I love you.
Your name,
and I say this because I love you.
Yeah.
But you haven't made a film yet.
Yeah.
And the idea that you've got, like, 2 left in you...
It's crazy.
It's bullshit.
He's so young.
He is so young. And so talented as well. Like, what a shame.
I'm always interested to see, like, when someone does the thing you don't expect. Like, when are they going to do that, like, wild... strip everything back and like do like something totally opposite.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, wow, they're really trying for it. That's what's so like, say what you want about the guy, but that's what's so interesting about Kanye's career. Is just like album after album, like he's just like, okay, on to the next.
But even the idea of being like, well, I'm that person who always does a quick 90-degree turn and turns onto something else, and I'm always that revolutionary character that has to redefine himself with every project. Like, that mentality is also just as limiting as like...
Yeah.
And I think I genuinely feel with Kanye that is a big source of his limitation.
Yeah.
Because I love Jesus is King, and I bang it every single like day almost, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. But I'm like, no, you could have dug in deeper. You could have kept digging.
Yeah.
You could have like there's like a chaos to it that compromises the grace of it that I can only put down to his persona of being someone who's always redefining who he is. And for an artist to be empowered to just stay in one place for a little bit longer than is comfortable, I feel there's great power in that.
Being an artist is so ridiculous. It's so wild.
What do you mean?
It's just so wild. It's just wild. It's just wild. Like, why? Like, why? There's tropes in it. And there's still things that haven't been done.
Which is almost antithesis to the postmodern idea that we're coming out of, that everything that you could ever possibly think of doing has been done before.
I do think that. I do think that. But I do think that the things that are new are loads of old things from different places, and the person and life experiences brought together, and like a new thing is made. The idea of like something being like pure is so dark, I think. It's so like anything. Like to be like, no, this is how it is, this is how we've done it, and this is how we continue doing it is a really dark sentiment, I really think. And like where things are interesting is a mix. And that's everything.
What's been your like artistic focus recently?
I was in this like group art show. And I made this piece, which was like, it was basically a selfie that I like took on a large format camera, and then like blew it up and stuck it on the ground, and it was like covered in these stickers I made. And above the stickers, so the stickers said like, the sticker said, "Warning, smile, we're all on camera." And then above it was a phone, and every time people walked over, I was like manually triggering like photos of people. And then, so like the stickers, this like project has been really interesting, and I'm still like delving into it and like working on it and like looking at the findings, because I've always been interested in making a piece of work where it's not shouting, "Hey, I'm an art piece." Like, it like lives in a different context. It lives in the world and it's engaged with a lot more than like what a painting does. And then like people interact with it and like in a way like also people like tell me what it is. Because I know what it is for me. But I'm not like, that doesn't mean that's like fact. I'm really also strongly into the thing of like when you make a piece of work and put it out into the world, it's not yours anymore. That's my favorite thing. I love that. That is also why art is so important because it stays the same. The pieces don't change. Like everything from like they don't change, they stay the same. So like and then we change. The world around it changes. I think that's really important because you need something that zips up the time, you know, zips up the moment in a way, back to the icon thing. Like you need something that is like, okay, this is what's happening at this point in time, in this like month or this like year, this decade, and this summarizes it. And then you can look at that and be like, okay, let's see how this ages. I think it's very, very important. Like, there's a lot of things of people being like, oh, like, you know, like I really, it's weird. I sometimes think that, like, I really want, like, things that are, like, meant to be, like wrong or, like, are toxic in the world. I really, like, think that those things should be made because I'm like, because it just puts it on a thing of like, look how like this is wrong. You can't like, I don't think you can't hide from that.
It's a provocative idea to propose that the necessity in all things bad and good.
Yeah.
It's almost like, I've been thinking about this recently about Brexit. It's like, it's rejoice that it's happening.
Yeah.
Because revealed
Oh my
are
God.
the bigots,
the
racists, the ignorant people.
Yeah.
And it's like the knowledge of that shadow can only point us in the direction of where the light is coming from.
Yeah.
So once those things, those horrible personality traits, those very fearful and very limiting personality traits are exposed out in the open, then they can be dealt with. Not in like a violent or threatening way, but in a sense of that we have a better grasp of reality now. For anybody who might have thought, this is a big conversation that's happening on TV and social media and stuff, is like, for anyone who doesn't believe that racism is a thing, you only have to look at one day after Brexit, a notice board that's put up in a block of flats in like Hull or something that says, crazy. Speak the Queen's English or fuck off home. It's like, oh, okay, well, thank God for Brexit. Because, you know, that sort of stuff might have stayed in a grey area where people are like, oh, I don't really know if it's happening or not. It's like, it's so overt that it can only be extinguished now. And it's the same thing, I was reading a little book called Create Dangerously by Albert Camus. And he's basically like, rejoice for Hitler. Show deep gratitude for the Nazis. Because what they did is brought out a level of subconscious hatred.
Which was so in the soil.
That was so deeply rooted. But rejoice because now we can deal with it. Now we know what we're working with. It's not repressed anymore. It's out in the open. And the only place we can go from here is toward a resolution. Like, we've been to hell. We've been through war. We've seen the worst. Now what? We have to learn friendship. We have to learn how to resolve it. So it's a radical idea, though, especially in today's age, cancel culture and all of that stuff, to be able to go, have gratitude for those people, not justify or like or accept or do anything of that, like, but be grateful that they revealed a part of even yourself in some instance that needs to be stroked and told everything is okay and put to bed so that people can move forward in a real, true fashion.
Yeah, I don't even know if it will, like, I'm like constantly back and forth if like people will like people will engage with each other. I think like the system is so well designed, like not to put it on a pedestal, but it's like it's just so well like the machine is so well oiled and designed. It's like it's crazy. It's like the rollouts of some of these things that happen. Like I liken them to like advertising campaigns, like because they really are. Like
of course they are.
They are. And you know, like it's crazy. You're just like that's so heavy-handed. That's so obvious.
Yeah.
Like can you not
so
like
brutal?
Yeah. Even like it's with everything. You're just like. Are we not? Is no one seeing not seeing what's happening?
It reminds me of the 1975 song "Love It If We Made It," which is basically about how the world is fucked. But if we were the ones who had done it, we'd be very proud of the way we'd done it.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, it's a labyrinth. Like, how do we get out of the fractured state that we are in? Like, it preys upon everybody's insecurities to the point of where it's almost like, apart from the efforts of like a prophet or some kind of messiah or something other who can come down and be like, no, honestly, everything's fine.
It's all good,
Everything is fine. Even then still, you know, like that might have happened once and half the people who were afraid stuck him up on a cross.
Yeah.
So like, people always say like, you know, all we need is aliens to come, then the humans will unite.
Band together.
Have you seen Arrival?
Yeah, it's one of my favourite films.
Half of them are like, let's reach out a hand and say hello. And the other half are like, stick the fucking bombs on them, boys.
Yeah.
So it's to get out of it, I have hope.
Yeah.
I have faith.
Yeah.
But the fact that those two are the only two words that I can really have about them say everything you need to know about that situation. You know, it's like, you have to have some kind of delusion to believe in it.
Yeah. I had this crazy incident like the other day. I was like on the phone with a friend. Like we're having this like long ongoing debate, which I'm not going to get into. It's long. But like we're having this long ongoing debate, like this race debate. And I walk into this corner shop and I pick up some ginger. I'm like obsessed with lemon ginger honey. And so I pick up some ginger and the shopkeeper's like, it's so wild. The shopkeeper goes to me like, he's like, what are you doing? Are you stupid? How many days have you been in this country? And I was like, sorry, I've got to go. I've got to hang up. I got to go. So I'm like, I ended up spending like half an hour in there, like chatting to this guy, like, because I was like, how can you say, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you, like, how can you talk to anybody like that? Like, first of all, like, I've picked up this thing, like, maybe that's not the way you want me to do it, like, because he's like, you should have taken the whole bowl or whatever. He's like, I'm like, how can you say that to anyone? Like, you're like, why are you talking like them? Like, me and you both aren't from here. you know, like, and he's still like, yeah, but and I'm like, do you have children? He's like, no. I'm like, do you have nieces and nephews? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, how would you feel if like they came up to you and they said, oh, like, uncle, like today in school, someone said to me, am I stupid? Like, how many days have I been in this country because I did this? Like, how would you'd be like hurt. You'd be so confused. Like,
what did he say? What was his...
And he was like, when I like said that to him, I think I was like 27 minutes into the thing. So he was just like, oh, okay, yeah, like, sorry, like...
There's a whole queue behind
like,
you in the shop.
No, like, it was even funnier because people were like, he was serving people. It was, if someone had seen this play out, they'd be like, yo, this guy's wild. Like, he was like serving people and I was still having this thing with him. I was like so in shock. We have to question each other and we have to like, but also understand why people are talking in the way they are. And I think there's a lot less of that. It's better for the system if there's two sides. It's like, it makes the system like, it makes the systems, if we think of it like, not an algorithm, but like what it's trying to do. It's easier if there's two sides. It's easier.
It's more controllable.
More
manageable.
That's how it's designed. It's like harder when it's like seasoned.
Yeah.
It's harder when it's mixed. It's harder when it's like a stew. There's this like really, there's this quote which like, you know, that there's some of those quotes where like they don't know who said it. There's one that sometimes they say Queen Elizabeth said it, but it's like skeptical. And it says, always be, so this is from the point of view of someone, a royal. It says, always be suspicious of artists because they congregate and socialize with people from all walks of society. And when you think about that, there's a whole thing of, you know, people say like information is power, knowledge is power, information is power. It is, but the more powerful thing is the exchange. That's the more powerful thing. Information, like being smart is like cool story. Like, you know, knowing so much, that's like cool, whatever. But the powerful thing is exchange. The powerful thing is like passing that along. The powerful thing is like going somewhere, is traveling. It's like talking to someone from a different place, sharing stories, sharing information. That's a very, very powerful thing, especially when it's when you can't control it. Especially when it's like, if you think of it metaphorically, you think of stuff like LimeWire, you think of like file sharing, like away from the legalities of it, like metaphorically for what it stands for, peer-to-peer is a very, very powerful thing.
I feel like that's always been the mission of art. Like take for example, I think the film is called Fasara, the film that was just nominated at the BAFTAs about, it's a Syrian documentary, and it's just about a newborn baby who is trapped underground after their house has been hit by a bomb.
Wow.
And you know, I can't name off the top of my head, but you can think of countless other films from all the different cultures and societies around the world that's just aimed to make a reflection of what is happening in their world at the time and offer it up for anybody who wants to come and see it. And for the people who want to find those things, it's quite accessible. You know, there's a good community. From as young as like 15 of being able just to go to Blockbusters and get a French DVD, watch like a French horror film, and bring it home and be like, they're on some crazy shit. Like even
they also
so this Making Waves documentary that I was telling you about, a guy called Walter Murch. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's like the most famous editor in Hollywood. He's like the grandfather of editing film. He was maybe 8 years old and he got a cassette reel-to-reel tape thing, and he would record things on the radio and then listen to them back and be fascinated by that idea. And then...
At 8?
Yeah. Okay. And then he might have been younger. And then he would get those tapes and be like, well, what would happen if I cut those two pieces and then swap them over and then tape them back together and then run it through? And he kept doing this and just jumbling up all of these sounds and listening to it back and feeling like he was really, really creating something unique. Then he came home from school one day, he got his tape deck out and he got his microphone, he got the radio ready to record it, and he turned it on to a radio station. It was a French radio station which was being run by an artist at the time, like a residency, and they were playing Art Baroque, which is the exact same thing. They would get sounds from the world or different songs and they would chop it up and they would tape them back together and they would go, here is our art piece. So he was in Wisconsin or some other fucking middle America state, and he turned on the radio in the 1950s or whatever and heard these French artists doing the exact same thing as him. And I thought about that and was like, if that happened now, in our times, if that happened to us, we'd probably be like, for fuck's sake.
That's so true.
But for him back then, it's like, it's a miracle. You know, we've shortened space and time almost with technology, and France isn't that far away, and so it's more like we're competing for space in that sense. But back in those times, it was like, that's a true foreigner. We share nothing culturally, yet we have the same ideas, and these ideas are universal, are way out beyond the borders of geography, way out beyond the borders of language. Almost, there's like a mechanical quality to them that shows the universality of the mind, that we're all kind of plugged into this one thing, this one source of inspiration, if you want to call it that. And for me, that was just like, I would love to feel that feeling of finding something and being like, I made this yesterday and this person just made it.
Yeah.
And I'm 6 years old and that person's 30 years old.
Yeah.
And this thing that's running through both of us doesn't care about age, race, gender, location, like, or none of those things.
Yeah.
All it wants is to be realized.
Yeah.
That's fucking mind blowing.
I always liken making work to like dancing and like finding a beat and like the groove and like just hitting the pockets and like getting the head bop, the little like, you know, like just watching videos of like James Brown or like Sammy Davis or like Michael Jackson, like just being in that pocket. And sometimes when you're watching like people like in their careers, they're just fucking in pocket. You can't like, it's undeniable. It's like a beautiful thing to watch. And they're in their flow. They're not thinking about it. They've trained so much. They've like done so much that like when they're these ideas just like come out. And I've definitely felt that in myself. Like when I've come to like my favorite ideas or my favorite things, they've just hit me at random moments. And I'm like, and I know where they've come from. Like I know all the dots in my brain. Maybe not in the moment, but like a month later, I'm like, oh yeah, that's just that and that and that and that. And that thing someone said to me and like that when I was younger. But like it's the brain just going away, the subconscious just going away, and then bap, okay, you're ready for this today. What are you gonna do with it? What are you gonna do with it? What are you gonna do? You're gonna make it? Are you gonna act on it?
Some people would just think that creativity is just like, well, you know, it's problem solving in the mind. It's how things are organized. It's a purely strategic thing. And, you know, maybe art is then a quirky way of expressing it.
That's interesting. Yeah.
But then also someone might say, well, no, these are core, essential, universal truths that we should essentially build societies and utopias around. Like these are beyond human. These are from somewhere else, like an ideal.
Well, like love is an ideal, like.
Well, this is interesting because it's interesting that word is the first one you come to, because when we were speaking about artists in the later stages of their lives and how they become so essentialist, they become so streamlined to the message. A guy called Ram Dass, he was like a yogi, was a professor first of all, then he was like part of the 60s counterculture, then he became a yogi and a guru. And he wrote all these amazing books and was just an amazing person generally. Then he had a stroke and it limited his motor functions. So you could still go to him and still spend time with him and be in his presence. And he'd only say one word.
Love.
It was love. He wouldn't say anything else. He could.
Yeah.
It would take him a long time.
Yeah.
But he just surrendered to the fact that like what else could I possibly say?
Yeah.
Other than sit here in silence.
Yeah.
He just says, love.
That's beautiful.
In a million different ways.
That's beautiful.
Love.
Yeah. Different
Love.
intonations, yeah.
Love. So these words, these forms, these structures are all containers.
Yes.
But the question that I'm trying to get to is what is being contained?
Okay, this is so interesting. Okay, back to the thing of saying like a person's career, their message or what they're trying to get to is like a paragraph, and by the end of it, it's like a word or a tweet. You could also argue that like that word is also, it creates a bit of a feedback loop because everything sort of comes back to that. People argue everything sort of comes back to that word. So it's like this weird like zip file inside of zip file inside of zip file type thing. Because like why someone does something or why someone like even why someone like even why people do hateful things, like behind it, you know, it's like a lack of that word, or trauma, or like why did they go through the trauma? What was going on? It's because it's these like a lot of things seem to like go to that word. Yeah, I'm constantly always thinking about like that, which is when we were talking about earlier, when I was like about to like the pure tip on like music, for example, like and like vinyl and things like that. I don't know, like sometimes I'm like, people talk about like the heyday of the music industry or something, like, like in the 2000s, like so many records were sold. And it's like, I was reading this, I think I was watching a documentary, and I was talking about how, like, really what the music industry realized is that they actually just got really good at selling an object. It was really cheap. The overheads are like really low. Like the CD jewel case was like very cheap to make, very cheap to produce. The CD was just the vessel for the music. The music was written onto the CD, and before that it was written onto vinyl, and before, and tape and all these things, and that was just a vessel. And what's interesting now is that the vessel is... This is something that I've been obsessed with some time. The vessel is zeros and ones. So the idea is just contained in lines of like code, essentially. So, but what's interesting about that vessel is that it can live in different things, or not even live in it, actually. It can run through like a pipe.
Yeah.
So it could be played out on your phone. It could be played out through speakers. It could be played out, it's just like it does all these different things. And in a way, the actual thing itself is invisible. You can't touch it. So you don't lust the house. You don't lust, it's just straight to the thing. Like maybe the closest thing you lust is like your phone, which is like a whole darker wormhole. But and I just think, there was a long period of time I was just obsessed with that thought. Like, you could argue that it is like at its most purest right now because the vessel is not getting in the way of the vessel isn't so heavy-handed on the content.
This world where nothing actually exists, this singularity almost, where fucking all the ideas are just floating around in zeros and ones, and you can click them on a whim. It's like, I can imagine it doesn't take a genius to figure out where this leads to, and it's absolute madness.
Yeah,
and it's the beginning of it's the beginning of immortality, and the beginning of the end.
So what do you mean by the beginning of immortality?
I don't know.
I love that. By the way, can I just say, I'm so happy you said that you don't know. Not a lot of people don't do that. I find it so annoying when you only hear someone do it and they're like, you don't know what you're saying.
I have no idea, but I'll try to figure it out as I go.
Yeah.
But everything existing in one place
is dangerous.
And it also doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Because you need that otherness. You need that bridge in between. You need the space in between for it to be anything at all. Because if it's just all one thing, it's nothing.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, we need something tangible. We need something precious. We need a vulnerability.
Totem.
We need a totem, even if it's just for the sake of what it symbolizes, which is a lifespan.
Yeah.
You need anything to prove that we're still here.
Yeah.
If anybody who's done like any kind of, as we were speaking about earlier, anyone who's done any kind of psychedelic, anyone who's done sensory deprivation, anybody who's had an absolving experience of where you're fully in it to the point of where you go, I got to step out of this now for the sake of myself, for the sake of everything else, then you realize that this whole homogeny of digitization is not a good thing. We need a separation. We need to know where reality begins and where reality ends. It's as simple as that. Because I look at everything that exists now and I can only assume that it's here for that same purpose only. To serve as a separation for the infinite and eternal. Because if it was great, if eternity from where we came, maybe Big Bang, whatever was before, if it was so great, we would have stayed.
I love that. Yeah.
You know, if everything existing in one place was fine, was the way to be, was the pure idea, then there would be no microphone, there would be no Bafic, there would be no space for us to have any understanding. But for whatever reason, it's all dispersed out for this purpose only, to find itself again. But we're here, and I can only assume that this is right and well.
Yeah.
Which part of me thinks that...
I even think that in the future, we'll look back at now and be like maybe the digital cameras now, like, and we'll be like, oh, God. Or like, we'll be like, oh, yeah, that style of those, like...
Yeah, of course.
Do you know what I mean? Like, because I wonder at the time of like vinyl, reel to reel, did people lost over the not tropes, but the characteristics of those mediums? Do you know what I mean? Because it was all there was. Like shooting on film, or like, you know, if people like, oh, like the grain is like, I just love it, but it was all there was. There wasn't like the texture, or like, you know, the warmth, or the roundness of a Sonic, or like an 808, or like how it's recorded. Like, did people like, would they lust over it?
I don't think they knew what they had.
Exactly.
And I think we're able to look at it now. I didn't buy a tape machine for like a trendy reason, or it is for aesthetic purposes, but not for like outwardly aesthetic purposes. It's for the
What do you mean? That's interesting. What do you mean? Not for it?
Well, it's aesthetic because sound is aesthetic. It's.
But when you said outwardly,
it's not so people could be like. So I can have people think, oh, he's so cool, he's making like vintage old music. It's not because of that.
But would you argue that that's what you're thinking though? Not the hashtag vintage, or like, not like that, but like you like the sound of it, whether it's like, not that it's audible to other people, but to you, you can tell the difference. You can tell the warmth, the rap, like, you know.
Yeah.
It sounds like, that's the only way I can describe like real stuff. Is like, it's just very...
There's a reality to it.
Yeah.
There's a shape to it.
Yeah,
There's
the shape.
If I played a guitar in this room, or if I played this piano for you, it would sound one way.
Yeah.
And it would sound, you would feel it in the room.
Yeah.
It would resonate with you physically, not just esoterically, like on a real physical, biological level. You and that sound would be one for a moment. Now, if I did the same and recorded it through mics and into the digital computer, the relationship between you and that thing is so completely different. So it's like almost like a digital interpretation is what a digital recording is. It's the computer listening and going, all right, let me quickly sketch how this sounds, you know? And the best technology has the best kind of...
The faster writer
or the more accurate writer. But with tape, it's the moment.
Yeah.
It's not an interpretation. It's a magnet recording. Actually, well, I mean, maybe it's fucking exactly the same.
But that's what I mean. Like, I feel like it's actually...
Well, we spoke about... So I know you're thinking, keep thinking, but we spoke earlier, before the cameras rolled, about shooting on film and then going into digital.
Yeah.
And you felt like that was a good idea. Maybe that was the balance or the compromise.
Yeah.
Why? Why would you shoot on film and then go to digital? What is it that film's giving you that a digital fucking SD card?
But do you know what? I also, I'll go into that, but I'm also really big onto the thing of back to mixture, of like doing the thing that's right for the thing. Like doing the thing that's right for the project. You know, like a song about the time, like the first moment I realized this was watching Social Network. It was the first time I watched a film and I was like, was shot digitally, and I was like, this could not have been shot on film. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And like, the film feels like what, like on the surface of it, like the lighting, the grade, the lens, like it feels like what Facebook is.
Yeah.
It feels cold. It feels systematic. It feels like a thing. It feels like a gesture or something that was done and then like spiraled out of control. But like at the core of it, the same idea was there and it's just blown up. And I remember watching that and being like, whoa, this is interesting. And I think that's the mix. But what I was saying about like shooting on film and and then scanning digitally is because I feel like the technology is getting better and better. Like, and that's what I've found with, even with like with photos as well. Like maybe it's like doing a handprint and scanning that. Like it's the technology is getting better and better, and you're pulling from the original source is a the original master is an analog thing, but even the idea of like analog and digital, I think is so, because I can imagine like the most advanced like reel to reel, the most advanced like 35mm like motion picture camera at the time was considered digital because it had digital elements to it, because they do have digital elements to it. So even that is like quite interesting and funny.
I think it actually goes full circle with the container and the contained thing.
Yeah.
Because the digital thing is
a
only...
Mobius strip. Do you know what that is? A Mobius strip. That's the thing that I was trying to like do with my hands, which is like performance art. Sorry.
Digital is only ever meant to contain something real, for me, as I'm realizing now. Like you're saying, shoot it on film and then get it into the digital medium so that it can be contained and work with. But the moment that is captured has to be captured, or could be captured in the most humanly way possible. So as far away from computers as you possibly can be. Even
or not, I wouldn't even say computers, but as far away from a binary mindset as can be. Yeah. As nuanced as possible, as human as possible, because inherently, even if you were to do it reel to reel, cut it reel to reel, print it reel to reel, it still needs to go up onto distribution services.
Yeah, for sure.
You know? So it's like, yeah.
There's something in that philosophy, for sure, of the digital just being the house of where things are put together, but the inside of it reeks of humanity and is pressed to or captured by something that relies solely on something human, not human, but like natural, let's say, like electrics. I don't know what point electronics goes into computing, because an amp is electronic, but it's not a computer. I don't know what the divide is there. What turns it into...
In my brain, I'm thinking of this idea of things that are like binary. And I think it's, in my head, to be binary is to be rigid. Binary is like what our political system is right now. You know, like there's a period of time I was obsessed with this idea, and it was like this thought of figuring out what things were, and like I came to the thing that digital is binary, it's zeros and ones, whereas like quote unquote like analog is molecules and atoms, and it's like they both have their different, when you zoom in more and more, they both have their different letters that make up the language, so to speak.
Yeah.
And both
DNA is still binary, but it's got like 8 different letters or 11 different letters or whatever it is.
And that's what makes up the characteristics of the thing. And whatever one you decide to use, think of it as what's appropriate for what you're trying to say. Because then you can use the traits and I don't want to say tropes, you can use the traits and the not characteristics, but the traits of the thing, of the container, to help heighten what you're trying to say.
Give me an example.
Back to that piece that I was talking about on the selfie on the floor. Like, it was, you know, I was thinking like, what is I always want to make stuff that is so emblematic of the times, because I generally, if you were to ask me, like, what period of time I would like go back to, I I am so excited about today.
Yeah, right now.
It's like so amazing. Like today is like, it's crazy. Like it's so emotional. It's so political. It's so like boring. It's so exciting. It's so like, it's stale. It's like rich. It's everything. It's like, it's just so much.
So advanced,
It's
so primal.
oh my God, so isn't it? It's like, which is back to this thing of the container and the, like, even that as an idea, like being so advanced, but yet so primal is so Mobius strip. Like, the Mobius strip is like, it's a similar thing to like it's like a band that just, I'll show it to you and you'll be like, oh, I get exactly what you mean now. And so an example of that is like, yeah, that piece on the floor, like I was really interested in like, what is something that is emblematic of the times that we will look back on and be like, well, that was interesting. And like the thing that I was like thinking about a lot was the selfie. Like it's got an iconic visual language to it that I don't know if I've seen a lot of like stuff on it outside of the context of like where it's used. But it also has a lineage to it. The selfie has a lineage to it, like to self-portraits, to like even the story of like, I've been like reading a lot on like the Greek story of like Narcissus so I became really interested in that. But then I also wanted to like, how can I present it in a way that is like also makes a point of artistic tropes and plays into that and like makes a comment on that. And it was like, oh, like the selfie is so cheap. Like it is. It's like, it's not like, you know, that's what it's deemed as. That's what people view it as. For me, it's like really expensive and really like it's really rich. But like in the world, like outside of the world, what it is, it's like a very cheap thing. Like people look down on it.
How are you digging into it and finding a richness?
Because it's got such a lineage to it. It's got such a like, you got to think back to like, there's a period of time when people didn't even want images made of them because they felt like it took a part of their soul. Do you know what I mean? Or you got to think back to a period of time when like people would, like explorers would go to other countries and like make paintings or imagery of people, and people would be like, who are these like demons? And like, and that's like, and then like up to now where we're doing that ourselves. That's like, it's a very powerful, crazy thing. There was a period of time, the power dynamic of a photo, of an image being recorded. There was a period of time when someone in a position of having access to like equipment or to knowledge of painting, and then they decided to record. They were like, "You are worthy to be recorded."
Yeah, it's a very much class-based thing.
Very, very class-based. Like, or you're giving me money to make a recording of you, or I find you interesting in whether that be in a way that is whether that's the way of the person making the image is looking at the thing as a primal way or a perverted way. There's a power dynamic. There's a power dynamic, and that's the thing that I was very, very interested in. But now it's like, now we're like making those images ourselves. Every day people are looking in the mirror, and whether that mirror is the mirror in their bathroom or the mirror of the camera, you know, the camera or the screen, like they're every day, like whether that's just whether it's deemed a shallow gesture or not. Sometimes things are done sometimes people do things that are not that deep, but they're that deep. That's one of my favorite like phrases. I love like, me and my friends will like, be having like a long conversation or something, but I love like capping it off with, it's also not that deep.
It's almost like it's almost like a cliche.
Cliches come from a place of
truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes, which is what we'll also talk about as well, me and a friend, is that sometimes the cliches, we spend so much time romanticizing the cliche, the surface of it, that we don't unpack the thing.
So many times I've lived an experience and then said something and been like, oh, that's where that cliche comes from.
Yes! And that is an amazing, like, I don't think people do that.
Because it's so illuminating to realize, I was just saying things. Or I wasn't even living in reality because I knew what that meant.
But I didn't
know what that meant.
Yes.
And it's similar for pieces of art. You make something and you're like, oh, that's cool. And you go back to it 2 years later and it breaks you. And you're like, what the fuck? I had no idea what this was when I was making it.
Yeah.
And now it's like almost like you were guiding yourself there. But yeah, it's almost cliches have that other world around them as well. It's like you hear it so many times that you reject it instantly, even though they are true. And that's why they're so cliche.
Yeah.
It's like cliche is almost synonymous with universal because they're so common. It's like common sense.
Wow, that's
almost.
also like a crazy...
Cliches are common sense.
Yeah.
And it's
But they're only common sense because
people...
the culture of society at the time that made that cliche.
Yeah. But so imagine a million people all go through something. They all come out with a universal lesson. They summarize that quite poetically in a phrase. It becomes a cliche, and then the next generation who are devoid of any contact from that experience hear it, and it doesn't even land until they live it, and they go, "I could have saved myself so much time." I really didn't need to go through that.
It's
if
true.
I'd have just listened. But that's the paradox of life and art, is that your art can be imbued with as much meaning and as much of a message as you want, but it's only really going to work in that sense in a feedback loop or an echo chamber, because people who can appreciate it have already lived it and experienced it, and the people who really need it aren't going to get it or aren't going to listen anyway.
So that's why, back to this idea of a bridge though, is like that's why art is important. And you could also say that cliches are next to that in a way, because if we say a cliche is like it's like an idiom in a way. And but then also that's the cliche. If we're saying cliches as words, there's also cliches of a painting, or like cliches in film, or like so but those things act as like bridges to the next generation. So that creates the lineage, that creates the tree, that creates that, back to like what I was saying about the selfie, like just through digging and looking at stuff, there's a lineage to the selfie. This thing just hasn't popped up. And I think that about everything. I think the internet, like there has always been an internet. Yeah. It's just, it was a different thing. But
collective unconscious.
Exactly.
Subconscious. God.
Those things have always existed. Always. And like, and I think to understand a lineage of something is a very powerful thing, because then you can understand the thing even more. It's like us as humans. It's like the moment you like, when I was younger, I used to follow this, like, there was this Tumblr that I was obsessed with, which was like called, shout out Tumblr, R.I.P.
I miss it, man.
Yeah, man. What did you do, man? Just it was called like letters to my unborn son, or notes, messages to my unborn son.
Yeah.
And there was one that said, and I remember reading this, and it blew my mind. And it's sort of back to this Mobius strip thing as well, and back to like the feedback loop. And it said something like, the moment, it was like, son, the moment you realize everything your dad said to you was right, you have a son telling you everything you're telling him is wrong. I'm reading that and being like, whoa. Like, and it's that feedback loop in a way, and back to the thing of the exchange of information. Information is powerful. It is like, but the exchange of it, the passing of it, the like opening of a door and giving someone something from a different place they haven't been in, that is a very powerful thing. Like the most dangerous people to society, to the powers that be, are the people who are able to be on road and in a castle. Do you know what I mean? Like the people who are on the ground, but the people who are also in parliament. Like those are very dangerous people to the powers that be, because they are able to they're able to move around and take in information and also pass information.
This is the thing that I don't know what's happening. I'm like realizing something at the moment, but I'm still trying to piece it together. The cliche itself is a bit poisonous in a way.
Yep.
Because
It's a false idol.
it's the container, but without the experience underneath it. So I think about someone who might have said a cliche to me, and I'd reject it because I hear it floating around all over the place, and it lacks individuality, and it lacks personal experience.
Yes.
It lacks artistic expression, almost. It lacks that unique...
Experience and honesty,
It lacks that honesty. So your mum says, you know, like, there's plenty more fish in the sea, or whatever the fucking thing that a parent says. And you think, well, I hear that everywhere. So it's not coming from a place of truth, because otherwise you would just tell me a story and then I'd think, oh, there's plenty more fish in the sea.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
There's a reason why, as young people...
Long story short.
We reject it. There's a reason why, if it's not true... or if it's not being resolved in a way, or not being delivered to us in a way that's truly honest and truly unique, that we will then have to fall down the exact same pit hole just to realize you were telling the truth, or you were trying to communicate the truth. So it's this, essentially like giving someone a USB stick or whatever, but it doesn't have anything on it.
Yeah, there's just so many things that what we put on the pedestal is the container. What we put on the pedestal is the icon. What we put on the pedestal is the house. Like, even like back to like the record, like the vinyl itself. That's what we put on the pedestal, because we need something to house the thing, which is what you're saying. Like, it can't just be.
I don't know if I'm not quite following the vinyl bit.
So what I'm saying is that the vinyl thing is the vinyl itself is the zip file.
Yeah.
It's the container for the sonics.
But the sonics themselves are the zip file, because the sonics are the... No. The sonics are the container of an emotion.
Yes.
The sound, the chord, the combination of chords. Which is the idea.
Yeah.
But
It's macro. It's this idea. I remember in uni, sorry, I'm getting aside, so my brain's like bouncing. We're bouncing. I love bouncing. So in uni, I did graphic design, and my uni teacher told us about this thing, which like blew my mind. And I was like, fuck, I think I'm gonna remember this forever. And it was this idea of like macro, micro in graphic design. Like, you make your body type like tiny, and then you have your header, which is huge, and there's a contrast to them, or the scale of things, like whether it was like the kerning between certain things and the leading between certain things, they informed each other. You had like a number which was the rule for everything. So let's say your number would be 3.5 points. 3.5 was the ratio that would be like, everything has to be divisible by that. So like your type size would have to be 35 because it's divisible by 3.5. Your leading, so leading is the
space between two lines,
and then like that would have to be divisible by that, like the size of the like page, the borders, and all of this. And I remember when he said the thing about macro and micro, this idea of something being like something so small next to something so big, and them informing each other by a ratio or a scale, but they're still the same. It's just the ratio of it is bigger. And I remember when he said that, and I've sort of used that throughout everything in work, like that idea. And I just watched this film. Have you seen Uncut Gems?
Supposed to watch it last night, but my housemates bailed.
Oh, it's so
I think they're watching it now.
good. It's so good. I won't go too into detail on it, but there's this interesting moment where it opens up with it goes from like going into a diamond, into an opal, and it zooms into it, and it like goes into it, and then it's like looking at the molecules, and then it also goes back into a human. It goes from that into like the organs of a human, basically. It's like, it's macro, micro. It's like, it's the idea of love as the container and the files inside it as well. yeah, that's like, I see that idea in so much. I see that in films. They begin where they end. I see that in lives. They begin.
Yeah.
They begin
As they end.
Yeah, like we are our parents' children. Like I see that repetition in a way. Like in a way, with that, it doesn't. It also sometimes it does that. Where it's also the idea of a feedback loop. I remember, like when I learned about that, like blew my mind, and like something that just like does that. But also there's this thing where it does that, where it feeds back the thing, and then it like steps forward like tiny degrees, and then it goes again, and like there's a tiny bit. It's really interesting.
What would you call that?
I don't know what that is. I can only draw. I only draw it to people.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I know. But for me, that's evolution.
Oh yeah, that is. No, that's exactly what that is. That's exactly what that.
Whenever I try to imagine myself and my own personal development, I think of circles and spirals. And I think, am I in a loop
That's
right now?
The idea of spiraling out of control as well, and
Yeah,
spiraling in control.
Yeah. I always think, am I in a loop here? Or am I slowly but surely getting closer to the middle?
Yeah.
To some kind of point of entry?
Yeah.
Or am I just going around in circles?
Well, that's interesting. The point of entry.
So
That's really interesting.
I have a friend and we did acid together, and I was super depressed at the time.
Was that your first time doing it?
No. It was her first time doing it.
Wow. How many times have you done it? Okay, we'll get into that. Yeah.
Getting up to the hundreds.
Wow. Really?
Well, maybe like 50 or so.
Wow.
That's acid and mushrooms.
Wow.
But I was just depressed at the time and I take full responsibility. It wasn't a chemical thing. It was a very conditional thing. I was in my own way too much. And because she was on acid for the first time, she was looking at her hands and being like,
Yeah.
the miracle.
Yeah.
Rejoice, the miracle. Look at me. I'm magnificent. And she's like looking at the intricacies of the hand, like, almost like fractals of being like, well, it's one thing, then it's a bunch of other things, then it's a bunch of other things. And I was like, yeah, I know. Where does it end? And she looked at me and was like, where does it begin? And that changed my life.
Yeah.
Instantly got me out of that depressive state.
Yeah.
So I was like, there it is. I've been looking at this all wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I've been trying to find some faraway ending, like it's something that already exists and doesn't need to be created. But then I was like, oh my God, the reason why I can't see a future, the reason why I want to die, the reason why I'm suicidal is because I'm expecting there to be an end.
Yeah.
Instead of taking the responsibility of having to create it myself.
Yeah.
And I learned all of how to do that by going backwards, not only in myself and being like, well, why am I actually a depressed person who's afraid to be themselves? Okay, cool. Well, let me just trace my own lineage, you know? What kind of trampled dreams were there not only in my childhood, but my parents' childhood? You know, what happened along the way there? Okay, well, then let's zoom out of that microcosm and come a bit more macro.
Yeah.
What happened in the history of humanity?
Yeah.
And you start looking at
what was going on in society with my parents' time.
Exactly.
Like, what did they have to,
And then you start to trace it all back to the first ever stories, the fucking Dead Sea Scrolls and the epics of Gilgamesh, and you're like...
Which is also why art and stories and things have to be made, why we need the zip files, so that you can travel back, so you can time travel.
Exactly.
I always think, like, making art is like a form of time, like, and films especially, is a form of time travel. So when you did that, like, how far back were you, like...
To the point of creation, bro. Wow. I'm not even joking. Wow. Face to face with God.
Wow.
Saying, what's your problem?
Yeah.
What? Why?
Yeah.
Why all of this?
Yeah.
Why not?
It
was just me here.
Yeah.
It was just all of us here in this one thing. Why not have some fun? Why not fucking travel? Why not be? Why not?
In a literal sense, like, how has things changed? How have you found that things have changed?
Well, I think I was in a shed, completely paralyzed at that moment.
Yeah.
Completely mortified and terrified and wanting anything other than that experience I was having. But very grateful for it too.
How long did it happen for?
It was, I don't know, forever? 5 minutes. It was just a wild experience, but what happened was, it's a crazy visual thing. I was falling, and then I was like falling, and I was despairing because I was like, this is it, this is the end. And I hit the ground, and I shattered into a million pieces. And as these pieces were flying up in slow motion, I started to see all of my memories reflected in all of the shards of glass. And I was like, I see all of these places where I might have been diverted into the path that I'm on, which has not satisfied me, which is why I'm in this position looking for answers. And I just got a good clarity there. I also got the moment of absence of where I'm able to have a conversation with myself. When I say that, I mean like the self, not myself, the self. The thing in which allows Walter Murch and Dave in France in 1950 to both have the same idea at the same time. And it was basically just like, after that, it was like, okay, well, now I just need to listen. Now I know where that self is. I can tune in now. I can listen and I can trust. To summarize your point, though, of how I changed was just finding that, being able to like geolocate the God within me. And being able to trust that when I step out into that space, even though it's pitch black, it's solid ground.
Do you think that will happen again?
Hopefully.
Yeah. Yes,
I chase that.
Yes.
But this is the thing.
Yes.
I try to chase that in the most
Pure way, not in the
productive
destructive way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always chased that.
Yeah.
Like, my first EP was called Self-Construction because I bumped into my mate on the train and he was like, oh, how's the music going? We used to work together. How's the music going? I was like, yeah, well, I just lost it all on a hard drive, actually. So I'm currently remaking it from scratch. And he was like, that's literally the theme of your life, is destroy and rebuild. Then I was like, I am quite a self-destructive person. But it's also interesting that self-construction is nowhere near as a popular concept as self-destruction, even though they should be like almost one in the same.
Yeah.
Why is one looked at negatively? Why is there no like positive reinforcer of that concept?
Yeah.
And that, so now is like that EP, I guess, marked the turn in my life of where my rebuilding process of me, or like destroy and rebuild process, is always aimed at something positive.
Yeah.
Some not like flailing around in the dark, lashing out, trying to find something solid to hold on to. Now it's like, I found a ladder and I'm climbing up it. So it's like every rung is an iteration of me as an individual.
I really hate this sentiment that I hate when people say, oh, that's not art. As if like a piece of art can't be bad, even though bad is subjective, but you can't look at something and be like, that's bad, but it's art.
Yeah.
People like to think that if you're saying something's art, that is good. I don't think that's not true. That's not true at all. It's not true. You disagree? I love this, Gordon.
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
I used to think that there was a divide between art and not art.
Yeah.
But now I think there's good art and bad art.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Good art and bad art is like different for different people.
I agree on a zip folder level.
Yeah.
I disagree on a true level. I think that once you're in...
What is true?
I don't know, it's a very difficult conversation to have if you don't believe in truth. Like,
that's interesting. Okay.
Because then...
I have to register, I have to think about that.
And it's really difficult to talk about truth and not talk about the psychedelic experience. Because over countless cultures, over countless millennia, all the experiences have been the same. So if you haven't experienced that experience, which I don't know if you have, I haven't asked you the question, but I would make a guess.
Would you make a guess that I have?
That you haven't.
That's so interesting. How comes?
Because I don't know.
Oh, this is good.
Well, I'm hoping I'm wrong.
Why is that? That's interesting.
Because you can't have a psychedelic experience, in my belief, and then think truth is something subjective. even just from a logical statistic thing, I can show you a diary entry. I can't, but you could read a diary entry of somebody who did psychedelics yesterday, and a cave painting or whatever of somebody who did psychedelics 20,000 years ago,
And
or
they both
whatever.
speak to the same truth.
And they're both saying the exact same thing.
Do I think there is a truth amongst everyone? Like, that is one thing. Like, in a way, that's really hard. Do I think there's a truth?
Well, you can't deny the truth in birth, and you can't deny the truth in death.
So then, with that being said, then there is a truth.
So then there is a truth.
Yeah, yeah,
We can actually all stand on the same ground.
yeah, yeah.
From which we came and from which we return, Mobius strip.
Yeah.
There's something in that process.
I like that. Mobius strip. It's like a rap shout-out.
Rest in peace, Kobe.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Damn.
Yeah.
Wild.
But there's the gaps in between then are more common than I think we give them credit for. More common than the zeitgeist would have you believe. Like, isn't it so obvious, like we were speaking about earlier, how obvious the powers that be can be, the plays almost of division.
So heavy-handed.
So heavy-handed that in the era of the internet, true connectivity, the zeitgeist is that truth is subjective and doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
How can you have the internet, global connectivity, one mind, and also truth isn't real, everything is subjective, we'll never really know anything.
Yeah.
The two don't match. You can't have the internet and non-truth at the same time.
So I think what you're saying when you say there is a truth is actually... I know it's a deeper thing than what I'm saying truth is subjective. You're talking like top of the pyramid of like, you know, if we say like the bottom of the pyramid is like loads of different, is it true that the color red is red? Is it true that, like, all these things, like even that is a thought is like...
Red's not red to a colorblind person.
Yeah, and like red is like just the name of the, like, it's the
language,
it's the vessel.
Culture.
Yeah. So like, and what you're saying at is like the core thing. Back to, if we take this pyramid idea, it's actually similar to the idea of the start of the career and the end of the career. And the bottom of the pyramid is the like beginning of the career with like a paragraph of like what the message is, and the end of the career is like a sentence type thing. So if you're saying like, if you're saying like, what is the truth? I'm understanding it as like, what is the truth about X, Y, and Z? But if we're saying, and is truth subjective? When I'm saying truth is subjective, I'm understanding it as truth is subjective about X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But
truth with a small t almost.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And I think that an interesting thing that for an artist to do is to imagine, okay, well, let me invent a truth. I use that word loosely. If I were to imagine the world that held the truth that we are okay after we die, we are fine, how would that change life as we know it?
I don't know what that would do. But I recently, back in context to an article I was reading about Kobe, and they quoted, I haven't actually seen Troy, but they quoted something, a quote that's said in Troy, the film. And it's Brad Pitt, which is Troy, I guess, is it? Yeah. And he says something along the lines of, the gods despise us. They really don't like us because our time here is windowed. Like, we have a beginning date and an end date. And for them, their whole lives are just infinite. So they look at us and despise us because every moment is precious and is a gift because we won't get it back again. Whereas for them, it just keeps on going and going and going. And interestingly, we look at them and like...
With envy.
With envy, because there, it's infinite. Really, like when you think about it, like I remember having this. I grew up in like a strict Christian, and I remember when I was younger, just like sometimes you'd hear stuff and be like, the idea that infinite of anything is sweet or is sour. Is it? Because what makes something sweet or sour is that the experience is windowed. I'm eating these blueberries. It's like I'm enjoying it because I'm like, there's a window. It's like it's not forever there, because if it was forever there, back to this idea, Mobius strip. Back to this idea of everything being nothing and nothing being, it's like it's that same idea. And I think if it was a unanimous thing that everything was fine and everyone knew that would be that small gesture. Can you imagine if everyone just got imagine if everyone just got like a system update and like that idea was plopped into our head, and not only was it just for us, but it's throughout history. And suddenly like, damn, that's a film idea. And suddenly like everything changed. Not just like now, but like history. So like World War II, like everything changed. Because we all downloaded this update that was, you're going to be fine. Yeah, you're going to come back. It never ends.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting thesis. Like an interesting like...
Well, maybe it would make the cavemen not build houses and not hoard food.
I think
it would stop agriculture, and it would remain a primal society or a primal gathering of people.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't be frightened. Yeah. They'd be like, oh, well, you just get eaten by a lion and then you pop up somewhere else.
Yeah. Being a person who makes stuff is both deep and not that deep. Back to this idea of Mobius strip. Back to this idea of everything is nothing and nothing is everything. And like the thing that informs each other and macro and micro, it does that. That's what it is. It's everything and it's nothing. Because it's everything for you, but it's nothing to someone else. And it can be nothing for you and everything to someone else. There's countless stories of people who've like made something or done something, throw away, literally maybe put it in a bin, or like someone's like been like, oh, this is amazing. And then suddenly it's like, and that person has to live with that for their whole life, but becomes heavyweight because they've got this thing of like, no, I made that and I didn't like it and I threw it away, and you have no right to...
So who are you to judge?
Who are you to like, no, or who are you to even take it and put it out in the world and let everyone like it?
Well, who's the artist to judge? If we're gonna bring back this idea of a bridge, like imagine a bridge turning away a car. Like,
wow.
It doesn't make any sense. The mania of being an artist or someone who willingly offers themselves up as a vessel for this spirit to flow through is that you can't judge what does and doesn't come out of it. And if you do, you give yourself a tumor.
Yeah.
And you have to take it.
Because it's so much bigger than you. The energy, because there's a lineage to it.
You have to take it. You have to accept it.
Yeah.
And if for some reason it doesn't align with you, you have to fucking bend.
Yeah.
You have to fold to it. If you try and make it fold to you, it will kill you.
I know, right? It's crazy. It's crazy.
You have no choice.
Yeah.
So it's like almost this idea of an artist being a desirable position is so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Because first of all, you get crucified for it,
Yeah.
even though you've got the best intentions.
Yeah.
And second of all, you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Because if you deny it,
it's so painful.
It will hurt you.
Yeah.
It will kill you. And if you accept it,
oh my God,
you have to surrender to the fact to an eternity of change.
Yeah.
And how does one do that?
Yeah.
How does one accept eternity without pulling their own hair out, without shooting themselves in the face? Like, how do you accept it?
Yeah.
Gracefully?
Cause when I in uni, like there's a thing that was said about this idea of the answer to the question, or like the answer to the problem is in the question, which is like the same. It's the same like thought. It's the same idea of like everything is nothing. It's the bigger thing. Like the answer to the bigger thing is in the thing. It all informs each other. And I think that's how I think about like making things and projects as well. Is like I'm like, what am I getting at, or like and like even like doing stuff with other people, and like I always like to dig and find out more information, because I'm like, and it might frustrate some people sometimes, because I'm like, oh, why did you do that, or what's this, or like, oh, tell me about yourself, like, because I think like the answer to the thing is in the thing. It's not about because that's what I don't ever really want to have. I don't ever want to have a style.
Yeah.
My style is
my lack of style,
or my approach, which is to investigate the thing, and then find the answers in the thing, like in the
Bruce Lee,
in the proper. Generally,
water in the cup.
Generally is that, because I generally remember when I was younger, like finding that on YouTube and like being like,
yeah,
oh my gosh, like, you know, he's like, you've got to be like water, you've got to like, and like even like as I grew a bit older, I started to realize like, man, like I don't even know if water's the one, because it's like you can still sort of like you can still like, you can put a cap on the vessel type thing. Like it's actually like the greatest flex is to actually like be a gas. Yo, I'm trying to be a gas out here. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
maybe that's why when people say you're gassed, you're gassed, it means it's like,
oh
you're uncontainable.
Jesus Christ.
What is happening?
Oh, yo, that's crazy.
The fractals.
That's actually like,
how dare like,
that's actually quite true.
Yeah, but how can slang be?
Oh, of course. No, that's the biggest one. I remember talking to a friend. I was like about something, and I was like, that's what that means. Like,
short language, even slang is slang.
Yeah. But like, you know, the idea of like, you know, like, oh, he's a pagan.
Yeah. He worships the sun.
Yeah, like,
wait,
pagans were just people who didn't
believe in God.
Yeah. It's like,
they're non-believers.
You are different.
Yeah.
You're just like, you know, it's like all these things, there's a lineage to everything. Even like the phrase like, he bogart the thing, like to bogart something. Do you know where that came from?
Humphrey Bogart.
Humphrey Bogart, like, would always like be photographed with cigarettes and would never like pull on them. He would just have them as like a prop type thing. And it's like so interesting. Like when you start digging, like, where did that come from? And you read into it, and it's like a lineage. It goes like, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah, etymology, but not necessarily just for words, but for like everything.
Etymology is like crazy. The amount of times I search a word. My favorite thing to do is to like right click a word and like define.
Weird. Did you know? Do you know the definition of the word weird?
No, what's that?
One who is in control of one's destiny.
Oh my Jesus! That makes so much sense, right?
Influence. Its original meaning, the reason it was invented, was to define streaming ethereal power from the stars.
Jesus Christ! Jesus! Oh my God! That's mental.
So if
so
now
now
think of the phrase under the influence.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. Oh my God!
So somehow something so immensely profound and positive and otherworldly has been turned into something intoxicating and poisonous.
You know, like if I look at like, I'm just saying, but if I look at like religion, how I like look at art. Like, if I look at, like, I think, I was like, people, man, like, if I look at, like, religion and look at, like, stuff, how I look at art, it's, like, it's the same. And not to, like, denounce religion by saying that, but it's because I realize that I just really believe in art. Like, and if you look at, like, those holy books, they, like, the craziest of stories and metaphors that are still used and referenced today.
And still play out in our lives.
Still play out in our lives. Like
how many times...
The Matrix.
Yeah.
Lion King.
Yeah.
Like all these things are just like
Not only
books
just
out of the Bible. And from what I understand, and what people have started telling me, I started doing a bit digging before the Bible, like other things. It's just the Bible did the best job of like
accumulating
it, designing it, naming it.
This is what I try to tell
chapters
people all the time who hate the Bible. It's an encyclopedia
of the times.
of the times, but also of the lineage.
Yeah.
It's an encyclopedia of all of the stories that we've all of the memes that we've created to
be where we are now.
To represent an amount of knowledge and information that is not capturable.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so dense because we've tried to put an infinite amount of information into something limited.
Yeah.
You know, like the Bible is, and all art is like as complex as the universe itself.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's all in there. But the thing that you said earlier that's still like, I'm still thinking about it is the answer is in the question. And I was thinking, okay, well, what's the most essential question I can ask? And I have two, and they're basically one and the same. What is love?
And then you say, what isn't love?
But to take the idea that the answer is in the question, so I'm picking apart the question and being like, well, okay, if I don't look at it as a question and I take the question mark away and it becomes a statement, it's what is love? It's not a question anymore. It's saying that the word what itself is love. And then I'm like, well, what does that mean?
That's interesting.
The ability to question
something
is love itself. The ability or the fact of separateness, the fact of non-understanding is love itself. Uncertainty is love itself.
That's very true. Because my friend was telling me this the other day, like she's a DP and like she was doing a job with someone and they were like, she's like, the woman is like a hippie and like, I think she was a hippie or like crazy life experiences. And she was like, man, the craziest thing anyone can do, and I think anyone who's in love or is in a relationship, the craziest thing anyone can do is like be in love, is like being in love. It's like, so you're just naked all the time. Like, here, I'm gonna give you this.
Yeah.
It's your responsibility. Like, if you could like, or like, do you know what I mean? Or like, even like, not just even saying given this, but like you hold a portion of this and you can do something that maybe I might be like, oh, fuck. Or like, I might do something to you. And like love is gnarly.
Another way to look at it is love is gnarly and love is wild because you're making a commitment to be the best version of yourself and to not hide and to not lie and to not pretend that you're certain about anything and be completely open and honest about that no matter what. Which is like, it's not necessarily like if my girlfriend went out and cheated on me, like I'd be disappointed in her. Would I be like, oh, insecure about myself? Would it hurt me? I'd be like, well, whole and honest and truthful people don't go out and cheat on people. So it's like, it doesn't necessarily impact me in that way.
Yeah.
But what does impact me is knowing that there's somebody else on the other side of me that I've made an agreement with and is holding me accountable to showing up every day and being fucking honest. And being real. Honesty. And being present.
Yeah.
That's the scarier thing. Like, most people would take someone who goes out and cheats on them every weekend as opposed to somebody who goes, why aren't you being the best version of yourself today?
Yeah. Because cheating is a zip file for a deeper thing.
Yeah.
It's like this, I read this thing about this idea of like a growth mindset and a closed mindset. A growth mindset states that like tends to be someone who is, you know, if you're in a relationship and an issue happens, you tend to look at it as, okay, there's a lesson to be learned here and we can like move forward. It's going to make us stronger. If you're a closed mindset, you tend to put someone on a pedestal and you think they can do no wrong. If they do no wrong, that's a chink in the armor. And then you're like, sorry, I just remembered something. If you do something wrong, then it's like that's like a dent in the armor, and you it then like goes on the tick board type thing. You're like, okay, any more, and then it's like, okay, now it needs to be done type thing, and that idea also maps onto people who think that you have people who are born like God-gift talent type thing.
Yeah.
Which is like very a political idea. It's a very, because then you set the tone that even like the idea of a royal family is a very closed mindset, because you're sort of stating that like these people are better than everyone else. You're sort of stating that they were, just inherently being born into a family states that you're just in a position that's like better than others. And I also think that I was thinking about this earlier with the idea of like the thought of what I was saying, like the great power and the great beauty is in the mix. And why I was like, even if you look at like, that's a mixture, and not even just like that's life in general. That's like falling in love with someone from a different place. That's like they have different experiences. All of that is a mixture. Now, if you look at like royal families, it's very interesting that like back in the day, all of them stuff was like quite incestuous because they didn't ever want to mix.
The idea of purity in the bloodline.
The idea of a bloodline and purity, that is
so vampiric.
It's so interesting of like something that's so back to everything and nothing. This idea of something that is so pure, that's actually so dirty.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
To be like...
We're so anti-truth.
To be like this thing...
To think that the river flows in through one stream only.
It's so crazy. And like that is such a flawed thing that sometimes we've downloaded, and that the lineage of that goes down to this in the arts. It goes down to this. And actually the people who people do this over, I think at their core would feel some type of way about how people do this, about what they do.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're doing the thing that they're exactly fighting against.
Yeah. Stop staring at it and dive into it.
Yeah. Don't
stop trying to figure it out, just feel it.
Yeah, exactly. Enjoy it. And that is the thing that people who make pure stuff, I think lust over on the people who make pop stuff. Because people who make pop stuff, people just enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's not that deep, but it is that deep. They don't come at it from they don't come at it with a thesis. They don't come at it reading the title card next to the thing. They just come at it and be like, do I like this or not? Yes or no? And that's like a very powerful thing. To just be like, to see something and be like, I'm just gonna enjoy it, or I'm just gonna say no to it, is a very powerful thing. To come at something and be like, okay, that's the thing? Okay, cool. Give me a sec. Okay. So this was made in so-and-so time and this happened. It's the powerful thing is just enjoying it. And I think the people who make but I could be wrong. I don't know the minds of fine artists, but I do think that's something that you would look at a popular artist and be like, man, people just, they don't people imbue so much education and institution in my shit, and I just want to in look at it and feel it, and that's why music is so powerful. And then next after music, that's why film is so powerful, I think. And then it goes down to other things, but there's sometimes stuff that saying that though, there's stuff that jumps out of its medium and does something it does something that the others can't do. The Bible probably is one of those.
Yeah.
It's a book. If we strip it back, the thing's a book. But it has done a thing that no other book has done, and is also in everything. It's in music. The stories are in music. They're in films. Yeah, that's if you're judging it from the medium, and maybe, but then also you've got the pyramids of time, like decades or centuries. What's the top of the thing? But they all have these different things, and they do and say they have different types of engagement, or they inform inspire different types of people. I always liken it to like, basketball players want to be rappers, rappers want to be basketball players. Or like, the purists want to be the everyone's like, oh God, I want a bit of that, or I want a bit of that. And it's like so interesting. They all have their advantages and their disadvantages. And the powerful thing is be able to like move through all of that.
Yeah.
It's be able to like do the thing that like is like on time, is registered and lands on time, and then also do the thing that is like, oh, no one gets this shit. They're gonna like, and then 10 years later, they're like, oh, that's what that meant.
I think the interesting thing in all of that is that you have a bunch of people who want to be anything but themselves. And the artist kind of just runs through the middle of them and is like, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's all fine. Or just like maybe just at peace with the fact that they are who they are. Like the Puritans want the freedom of being not pure, that they want the lack of pressure.
Yeah.
But the not pure want the royalty of being royal.
Yeah.
And the primal species want the comfort and security of being advanced, but the advanced want the spontaneity of a primal nature.
Yeah.
And I think the role and responsibility of an artist is just to imbue all of those things simultaneously and fucking vomit whatever comes out of that mania.
Yeah. I always liken it to like, you just got publicly diarrhea out here, man.
Pull your fucking
just pull your trousers
down in front of everyone.
Pull your trousers down and squat. Let's go.
I think we're 3 hours in now. So I think we should wrap it up.
Jeez, really?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
But thank you for coming and sitting with me.
It's been a pleasure.
Looking at cutting this down is like a fucking mountain. I'll get round to it.
Oh, my God. It's been a pleasure.
I mean, I've chased you for weeks to get you here to have this conversation, and I feel like
I'm so sorry, man.
you compensated highly for
sorry.
it. We've got a lot of stuff to work with.
I'm so sorry.
But let's do this again in like
100%.
however many months.
100%. Yeah, I'm down. I think the moral of the story is, after 3 hours, it's not that deep.
It's not that deep at all. It's so deep.
But
it's so deep.
It's so deep, but it's not that deep. I love it. And it's a feedback loop. Oh my God. 3 hours.
3 hours, 5 minutes.
Oh my God.
This one wasn't recording.
No. Oh my God. You know how scared I got?